we could think about it in three major phases: the creation phase, publication or production, and marketing, right? And so how do we enroll other people in each of those phases is a really good thing to think about, whether you're traditionally publishing or self-publishing.
Welcome to the podcast that helps speakers and writers like you grow their impact and income. This is Stage, Page, and Screen. All right. So here's where I want to start with the nerdy book talk. I'd like to discuss the need, or perhaps even the wisdom, of self-published authors assembling a team to help them. So I did a bit of sort of like comparative research on this. According to the Recording Industry Association, the average number of people that work on a pop song is like 8 people. So you're songwriters, producers, musicians, background vocalists, etc. And then according to the Book Industry Study Group, a 2013 report they did, the average number of people involved in the publication of a traditionally published book is about 11. So there you're talking author, agent, acquisition editor, developmental editor, copy editor, researcher, proofreader, illustrator, marketing team, production team. And so can you speak to, because we often see folks that go the route of self-publishing doing it a lot on their own, or maybe choosing just a couple people, tends to be based on financial constraints. Can you speak to the wisdom, if you're going to self-publish, of assembling a quality book team?
This is a great point. And I think this is something that we have a cultural mythology around that impedes our success as authors. We have this, even from the creative origins of a book, we have this idea that we go into a creative cave and it's dark and we're alone and we write the book one time and it's perfect. It is only a good book if we deserved to write a good book in the first place. And we emerge from the cave like holding the book up high. Here it is. It's the book. And then I leave it on the ground and everyone buys it. And of course, the reason that anyone who's published a book might be, I hope, laughing along with me is because what we come to find out is that is not at all, from creation all the way through production, as you're mentioning, and marketing. It's really not how a book comes into the world, or any product, right? And I would, for all of us who are business-minded folks, like when we start talking about publishing books, we can remember that a book is a product that we bring to market, right? I mean, like, it's just a different type of product, different type of packaging, but at the end of the day, it is a product that we bring out to market. So I would even say we could think about it in 3 major phases: the creation phase, content development, right? Publication or production, which is where the publishing house is often really most valuable, and marketing, right? And so how do we enroll other people in each of those phases is a really good thing to think about, whether you're traditionally publishing or self-publishing. And my guess would be that folks who are self-publishing don't enroll a lot of folks because they just don't know that's what would make it better or easier or more successful. And the reason that traditionally published folks have all the team is because the traditional publisher knows this is what we need, to get this project done. And so this is a great conversation for anyone who's considering the different publishing options. It's like, yeah, one of the benefits of working with a traditional or a hybrid or a self-publishing services is you're going to have a team, at least for the production part of the book. And I would bet that most of those authors especially who sign a big deal, like a book deal where you get an advance and you get to be all excited about it, when they get that validation from the publisher and they start talking about how excited they are about the book process, then they're enrolling people as they're writing, they're enrolling people as they're prepping for the book launch, they're enrolling people as they're marketing, right? So just being in partnership with the publisher and that excitement and the energy and the ability to enroll people in the vision kind of happens automatically for folks partnering with a publisher. When you're self-publishing, you got to do that on your own, right? Like, you got to find the folks who are going to beta read your book and talk about your book idea with you and write with you. You got to find the folks who are going to help you with the cover design and the interior design and the editing and the uploading of files and all the fun things. And you got to find the folks who are going to help you with the marketing phase, that third phase, your book launch team, your reviews, your interviews, all of that. And then it becomes really the onus is on you as the author. Some people love it. Some people hate that. But you got to know that's what you're walking into if you're going to self-publish.
Indeed. Yeah, I've worked on both sides of this. I mean, both as an author and a literary agent. As an author, I've self-published books. I've gotten big book deals with major publishers. As an agent, the same sort of thing. And I mean, I agree with your critique of kind of the pro and con of a traditional publisher. I mean, I would add one thing. I think there's really three strengths that a traditional publisher can have for the right sort of author, depending on what their intent is. And one of those can be the developmental editor. If we believe the theory that good book marketing can get the book up and off the ground, but word of mouth and you, Morgan, reading this book and then texting three of your friends, look, you would be an idiot not to buy this book and read this book. This absolutely changed my life, my marriage, my parenting, my business, whatever it is. That's what's going to lead to you getting mailbox money 12 years from now. Depending on who the editor is, who the publisher is, that can be a big differentiating factor. I guess my follow-up question here is, because probably a lot of our community who are primarily speakers and out there speaking about their topic, for a lot of them, self-publishing is going to be the more viable vehicle. And so how can they think about selection criteria of their team? Meaning, if we think perhaps a lot of the best book designers, book editors, etc., are probably been scooped up by these big traditional publishers. But maybe there's a pool of 30% of the available market out there that are doing it independently or freelancing on the side. If I'm self-publishing a book, are there places I should look? What should my selection criteria be so that I'm being appropriately snobby and picky about my team, just like I'm going to be snobby and picky about every single word that I write to go into my book?
Well, I don't want to contradict you, Josh, but I think it's a question worth maybe verifying, and we don't have to do it right now. Are 30% of the talent full-time enrolled with publishing companies?
I'm just saying no. That's not a specific number. I'm just saying, if there's like 1,000 solid book editors out there, there's going to be a certain percentage of them that are working at a traditional publisher. So maybe they're not freelancing or not allowed to freelance. So of the rest of the available market, like, how do we sift through folks that are of high quality versus someone who's just put up a shingle and might not do that great of a job with their book because they lack the depth of experience?
Gotcha. Yes. The publishing industry farms out a lot of stuff to freelance. So you can actually work with book editors who would also work with traditional publishers. Like, that's absolutely possible. At Paper Raven, we try to scoop some of those up ourselves and give them enough work that they're full-time with us instead. But I think there's a huge hole in the market that you're pointing to here of, if we have always trusted traditional publishers to curate the talent, curate the writer, and curate the editors who are going to work together to publish these great books. And if we're trying to operate outside of traditional publishing, how do we find that curated talent? I don't know if it may not be appropriate to plug this exactly, but I'm going to do it anyway.
No, plug if it's helpful, plug it.
Okay, so this is exactly something that I found a personal pain point around, because I'm a self-publishing services company. That's what my company does. I started as a book editor. hung my shingle out there without a lot of experience, didn't charge a ton of money at the beginning, worked my way through building the chops year over year over year. 15 years later, here I am. We're publishing 65 books a year. I need editors, right? How do I find and work with and keep great editors? It's the same problem that a self-published author is going to have. So I actually started the Professional Book Editors Association.
I had no idea. Amazing.
Interesting.
It's a new initiative, and it's still kind of quietly coming together with some different partners and things like that. But I really feel like there's a need for a standard in the book editing industry, and arguably in other parts of the book, book design, book marketing. There may be other areas that need some standardization. It used to be that traditional publishers, if you were hired by them, that was the standard. That's how we knew you were good. But now it's like, how do we know you're good? Because you got a degree from Columbia or Chicago, or you're a Reedsy editor. Like, I think we need a different standard. So, we have the Professional Book Editors Association that we're getting up off the ground, and we are currently training and mentoring about 40 book editors in this really intense process that basically my team and I are spearheading that, because authors need to know that the folks they're hiring are meeting certain standards, that they know the difference between developmental editing and copy editing and proofreading and line editing, all these different terms. It's a tough problem to find your team and to trust them, and you're going to make mistakes. I think that's true of many industries, though. I mean, try to find someone to help you set up your website and your email database, right? I mean, like, it's just it's like owning a business, and you got to find the talent, and you're gonna make some mistakes along the way. But I will say that's part of why we're setting up the Professional Book Editors Association.
I think that's outstanding, and a great service to the industry, to authors. I think my advice would essentially just be, measure 2 or 3 times, cut once. Just be picky. Don't necessarily work with someone who's the cheapest, or just approach these folks with just a bit of skepticism, not to be difficult to work with, but just for the sake of holding a high bar for your book, to make sure that you're going to get someone that's a good match for it. My next question for you is, let's say hypothetically, you can only have 3 marketing breadcrumbs in the manuscript of your book. Okay, so I kind of pose this hypothetical because sometimes when I help get an author get a traditional publishing deal, I will explicitly put this in the deal, because if we don't, they will kind of refuse, on the back end, and they'll be like, well, hey, we didn't promise you that. So now I just kind of ask for a reasonable number of marketing breadcrumbs that we can put in the book. So, that might be, like a QR code. It could be, go to this link to download an editable version of this resource that I'm kind of laying out for you in this chapter. But let's just talk about this hypothetical constraint of 3. If you could only put 3 marketing breadcrumbs in a book, what do you think those should be? Where should they be placed? And would it be more effective to have like 3 of the same message scattered in different parts, or to diversify the messages, thinking about your different customer verticals?
I really like this question. I'm thinking.
I hoped you would.
I like the word customer vertical.
Again, I told you, I listened to 6 of your episodes. I'm like, I know whenever I'm a guest on a podcast, I go, it's fun to talk about the normal stuff, but getting into the nuances of in between what I normally talk about.
So you'll know the first one I'm going to say is, position-wise, it's got to be in the first 10% of the book. We've got to have a link. I like to do a link and a QR code. So if the publisher would let me do that, I would say that counts as one call to action.
Fair. Yes, fair. Yeah.
You want an easy link that someone could type into a phone pretty easily, or a QR code that someone could scan with a phone pretty easily. In the first 10%, so that when it's being previewed on, let's say, the Amazon bookstore, or theoretically all online bookstores will start to do this, where you preview the first 10% of the book, that even before someone buys the book, they could see this free thing. They could get on your email list, because someone who buys a book is great. Someone who joins your email list, you're with them, for much longer. So
Yes.
first 10% of the book for sure. End of the book for sure, right? Because if you get someone who gets all the way to the end of the book, that's like your golden reader.
Yes. Yes.
They've made it through the gauntlet of the entire book. You definitely want to get that person's, contact information. So call to action at the end. And then, if I had a third one, put it somewhere in the middle after an especially beefy chapter, probably the first quarter or the first third of the book. Because many readers don't make it past that. Maybe even after chapter 1. A lot of folks drop off after chapter 1. So maybe I'd front load it, put it kind of chapter 1, chapter 2, after I've given them some content, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some nonfiction books we start off with sort of your the initial contents about your problem, your challenge, your frustration, right? And your origin story, how you, the author, came to this, method or epiphany or realization or philosophy or whatever. And then you dive into giving them content. So you want to make sure that you're dropping that call to action after you've given them something more than just your origin story.
Agreed. Yes.
So those are the positions. And then the next question is sort of like hype. What are we giving them? I don't think you can do this with traditional publishing, but I give away my audiobook. It's been great. I got that tip from Chandler Bolt back in the day, and it still is great. I don't think a traditional publisher would let you give away the audiobook for free, but I like doing it as a self-published author. Other things I've seen work really well. If someone wants to have a companion workbook, I recommend, let's just make it a printable PDF and just put that, as one of the calls to action. Get the printable companion workbook right here. Is an easy one. I've seen like a companion course, fast track course, where if you're talking through something that might be demonstrable on video, for instance, you can let them know, I'll walk you through the process here in this video. Go to this link, scan this QR code.
And that is a great alternative to the audiobook, because even though on the value hierarchy, I would argue sort of a video course in some ways is a bit more valuable than an audiobook, though audiobooks now, the percentage of sales that makes up is getting quite substantial. But I have yet to see a traditional publisher push back on, we're going to do a deep dive video on this particular aspect of the book in exchange for an opt-in. That still seems to be something that authors can leverage, and that some traditional publishers are, at least at this stage, undervaluing the importance and value of.
Yeah, absolutely. We've even had some authors who said, well, I have all these videos on YouTube. And I say, great, get their email address and then send them an email linking them to all the YouTube videos.
Yes.
That's totally fine. So think about how you can repurpose some of that if you already create a lot of content or have something that's already for free on your website. It could still be a free thing in your book. Just because they could find it somewhere else doesn't mean that it's not a legitimate opportunity to say, you want to see this video, and, use marketing language, tease it up, give it a snappy title, maybe a subtitle or a tagline or something, and then link them to a landing page, grab their email address, send them some YouTube videos, maybe a sequence of YouTube videos.
Yeah. I mean, you could even set up a playlist that's specific, like a video playlist on YouTube that is specific to certain, aspects of your book, and just link to that after they opt into that email.
Yeah, absolutely.
A more subtle breadcrumb. Do you ever, any of the authors that you're working with, do you ever recommend something like this? So the kind of the more overt breadcrumbs we've been talking about, QR codes, links, go download this, go get this aspect that extrapolates this idea. Something like where you're telling a story that's going to be genuinely helpful, but in the lead-in of that story, it sounds something like, this school hired me to speak to their staff, and while I was there, I met this person that taught me this lesson, or I was working with this client hired me as a coach on this thing. So you're kind of gently positioning what it is that you do and the way in which people can engage you beyond the book. You're not beating them over the head with it, but it's a subtle sort of pre-frame of what you do. Can you talk about how you guide authors to do that if you do, and the importance of it?
Yeah, I do think that is part of why the origin story can be helpful at the beginning. And if you think about even some of the copywriting that we might learn as an entrepreneur, right? When you're writing a sales page to sell a course or something like that, you're always going to include what's the main problem that this course solves and the origin story of how you developed the course. We want to do something similar in a book. You don't want it to sound as like quote unquote salesy. You want it to be much more story like and engaging. But the same sort of thing, right? And that positions you because you identify, the big problem that maybe an individual has, the big problem that our society has, the big problem that an industry has, and then you introduce how you went about trying to solve that or find a way around it or find a new way of doing things. That's why the origin story is so important to include right at the beginning. It frames the whole rest of the book for you to be an expert. And then yeah, absolutely, with every personal story that you tell, if you can include something about how this is relates to a specific person, place, or thing, like a specific organization, a specific school, a specific, maybe you can't use a client name. Maybe you can, worth asking, but maybe you can include some client details, give them a pseudonym, something like that. Um, every time, sure, why not? And even when we're introducing client, like sometimes a book might have a client case study. You don't want to just drop a testimonial and put a name on it, right? You want to frame the case study as well. You want to frame the testimonial, turn it into a little story about that person to set that person up, um, that story up, so that the reader, as they're reading this storied version, the narrative version of this case study, they're seeing themselves in the case study. So let's put a specific on this. Let's say you're helping someone with a parenting problem and you're telling a case study story. You want that reader to imagine themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've had similar struggles with my kid. I have felt that way when I hit the wall with my kid too. Like we just couldn't see eye to eye and I didn't know how to go any further. Like you want them to have that experience of empathy because then they will see you as the person who can solve their problem as well. Is that kind of what
Absolutely.
you were angling at, Josh?
100%. Yep, 100%. I want to talk about customer perception with the thickness of a book depending upon page count. Okay? With this speaking agency that I run, I get folks who want to break into speaking or do more speaking who have self-published books. And I would say 7 out of 10 times I'm sent the book, it's like this thin. I mean, it looks like a pamphlet. It's probably 70 to 80 pages.
Yeah.
And immediately I go, like, they don't care this much about the book. They're not detail oriented. The book is not going to be that valuable. And then I begin to wonder, like, is this just me? Is this just some anecdotal bias that I have? But I did some research on this. So a 2004 study in the Journal of Marketing found that consumers perceive thicker paperback books to be of higher quality than thinner books, and they're willing to pay more for the thicker books. But it seems like the average customer expectation for a paperback book is around 250 book pages. So not Microsoft Word pages or Google Doc pages. So have you found any of that to be true? And then when I looked up your book, which is like highly reviewed, you have over 1,100 reviews. Start writing your book today.
There it is.
Yeah,
Listener, we
according
have a
to
picture of it.
Amazon, it's allegedly 138 pages.
Scandalous.
So your book kind of breaks that, allegation that this study says. So what would you say about the importance or of that, or is that just something I'm overestimating?
No, I mean, I think you're hitting on something that is a real, it's something to be aware of, right? Perceptions, people's perceptions of the books, but also think about how you're going to be using the book. So I have never mailed my book to someone and said, please put me on your stage. Here's my book as validation that I can bring value to your stage. Like that has never been the way that I used my book. Instead, when I'm brought on stages, it's usually because of my networking, right? Like people I know from masterminds or clients or referrals or whatever, like relationships. My book is more for consumers, right? Is for direct to readers. I just want the book to be helpful to readers, and that's why it has reviews. Different if I knew someone was going to be mailing a book in a package to a speaker's agent or someone who's running a conference, I would absolutely say the book needs to have a spine on it. You need to have 110 pages for the book to have a spine on it. Like that's just how print on demand printers are set up currently. And physics, right? You have to build
yes. Fair point there. Fair point.
So I would say at least 110 pages. And I'm not sure that I would just mail the book. I think I'd probably have like a cover letter with some reviews and blurbs and endorsements sort of highlighting how this has been helpful, how the book content has been helpful to other people. Because you want the perception, right? You want to be able to craft or cultivate that perception. So, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And bear in mind, part of the reason why consumers, especially in 2004, expected a book to be 250 pages is because that's what traditional publishers required as well. Right? You had to, your nonfiction book had to be 55,000 words to 75,000 words so they could hit 230 to 280 pages so they could print it and price it for $19.99 and get, X number of dollars on a $19.99 sale.
Yes.
So that also set consumer expectations as well.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed with all that. I mean, I think too, particularly with sort of advice that is very prescriptive, I think there's a world out there where a book being shorter is a competitive advantage. I just think you would need to somehow own that almost in the subtitle to set expectations. Hey, you're going to pay $15 for this book because of its brevity, not spend the $15, get it in the mail, and then go, oh, this doesn't feel like the other 22 books that I have in my home.
Agreed. So when a reader's purchasing a book, what they want is the solution to the problem, especially as you said, if it's a prescriptive nonfiction book. If you can deliver on this is the solution to your problem, and they read it and they realize, yeah, actually that did help with my problem. That's all they want, right? And I mean, people are reading on an e-reader device. They have no idea how thick it is. They're listening to the audio version. They don't really know how long it is. What's the difference between a podcast and a book? I don't know. Sometimes not a lot, right? And then only sometimes are they really ordering the physical version. So like my book mostly sells from Amazon, and 80% are ebooks. 15% are audiobooks. 5% are physical, something like that.
Interesting. Yeah, that was seeing the way your current pricing schematic is set up on Amazon. That would have been my assumption, because it's kind of priced in that order that you just defined.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a speaker I work with. His name is Duncan. So I'm kind of thinking of Duncan as I ask you this question.
Okay.
Should someone write a brand new book, or let's say like Duncan, they have a book they self-publish 5 or 6 years ago. The book has done well, but it's really only done well because the person is just out there a lot. So Duncan is out there a lot. he's a phenomenal speaker. He's one of those sort of folks, if you saw him in person, you would bolt to the back of the room and say, I need to take home some of that message with me. It's incredible. But his book, and he would admit this himself, now knowing what he's learned about, the quality of writing a book, the difference between being a great speaker and a great writer, a lot of that he would go, I wish I would have done it differently. So for someone like him, should he just go, let book one be what it was, warts and all, and with book two, I'm going to get it right? Or is there an argument for Duncan and others listening that find themselves in similar positions as Duncan of saying, quietly work on a new version of book one, and when that is ready, swap them out, create a new edition of that book, because that book already has momentum in spite of it not being that great of a book?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, my first question to Duncan would be, how many reviews do you have on the book already? Amazon would be the primary place you'd have reviews, possibly Goodreads as well.
I think he's in the 500 range.
That's compelling. It's really hard to get reviews on a book.
And I will say the book reviews, again, if you saw him as a speaker, you would go 4.9 out of 5 conservatively. I think his book on Amazon, particularly from the pre-indoctrinated that have not sat in his audience, it's probably, 3.8. I would
actually want to look at it. We don't have to do this right now, but we can do it.
Sure.
But I would say, hypothetically, if his 500 reviews were an average of 4.5 or higher, I'd leave it and just swap out the files, new cover file, new interior file. I know this really goes against anyone who's from the traditional publishing world is like, having a fit right now. Because technically that should be a second edition. But if you make a second edition, you have to start over with a new sales page and new reviews, and that's really hard. So I would just pretend like it was still the same book. And in fact, I have done that with my own book. There's a 2015 version and a 2018 or 19 version, new cover, and I changed a few details in the interior and kept the same ISBN number. I mean, luckily there's no police. I'm not going to get arrested for this, right?
No one's going to get mad at you saying, Maureen, how dare you ship me a better version of this book? I am furious.
I would say that if the reviews are good enough, right? 4.5 average, you've got several hundred of them, just swap out some files and keep going. If, however, either reviews are not good or you kind of want to go a different direction with the content, like maybe maybe your philosophy has expanded a lot more, maybe your methodology has kind of pivoted in some way, and you kind of want to talk about something new, there's nothing wrong with a second book. I mean, I might still change book one. If I'm embarrassed of book one, I think I'd probably change book one. Or if there's something like I changed mine because I think I had published my rates as a book editor in my first.
Perfect. No, no inflation. No inflation. By the way, I'm still selling gasoline for 82 cents a gallon.
Yeah, right.
Anyone who wants some, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to.
Yeah, don't publish your rates in your book. Just refer them to a website, right?
Roger that.
So I would still change book one files, but if I felt like I had a new energy or a momentum or new direction, sure, a second book. The second book isn't as hard as the first, I say, as someone who's only published one book. But I work with people who publish multiple books, and it seems easier for them the next time around.
For sure. Do you think there's ever an instance in which you should entirely remove a book from Amazon? So now I can think of an example of this, and this would be on the traditional side of things. So there's this speaker I work with, and we wanted to go out and get him a traditional book deal. We thought that the size of his platform and his speaking gigs would sort of be appealing, and a traditional publisher would align with his goals. However, working on the agency side of things, I know that there's this bias with the big traditional publishers that your first book deal, it's all about sort of a hypothesis of potential of this author. How big's their platform? How much are they out there? How solid's the idea? How good are they at promoting the idea? And how good of a spokesperson can they be of this idea? With your second book, it's all about the data. It's not like how well do we think this person could do? It's like, let's just pull up the Nielsen book scan data and look at the facts and unapologetically just make our offer or pass based on that. So for this particular author, he had like 10 years ago published a little, self-help 30-page thing. And it had, horrific sales data, maybe like 5 reviews. And I thought, this is going to become a liability during the pitching process. So you need to just wipe this from the face of the earth. So can you think of any other instances in which it might be wise to just completely remove a book?
Well, I first just want to underscore, Josh, everything you just said. And I wish every single aspiring author knew what you just said, because it is so true. We all want the first book deal. We want to get in advance, and we're really excited about it when it happens. And we think, all right, we're on the golden road now. We're headed to success. What we don't realize is we are being tested.
Correct.
And they've, as you said, hypothesis. They're betting on the first one. Is this person going to prove out or not? And if you don't prove out with your first book, no one's going to touch you with a 10-foot pole after it.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's not the publisher's reputation is on the line so much as the author's reputation, especially with that first book. And I actually just had to sort of talk an author through this it was actually over the weekend. A friend of a friend called and was like, I've been trying to get my second book deal and I can't get anyone on the phone. I was like, well, how did the first book go?
Mm-hmm.
She was like, not great. So yeah, people need to know that. If you're signing a traditional publishing deal, just realize you are going to be marketing like you've never marketed before in your life.
Yes.
Get this first one to market, get it sold really well. That opens up your possibilities for future books. So I just wanted to highlight that first, Josh.
Yeah, agreed. And I've worked with authors where their first book, like, we couldn't hide or remove it. But for whatever reason, they really wanted to get a traditional publishing deal for their second book. The only honest advice I can give that person is, okay, if that is the penultimate goal, you need to buckle down for 2 years and absolutely resurrect the sales of this book. So you need to do for your first book what we're going to claim you're going to do for your second book to this publisher. And if you're willing and can pull that off, then indeed we can approach a second publisher and say, back in the past, she was not, intentional about the promotion of the book. We admit that, we own that, but look at this past 24-month track record.
Yes, that's a brilliant idea. What we have done for folks, if we can, rather than unpublishing the book, we'll do something more similar to what you just mentioned, which is, we call it revamp and relaunch. Especially we work with fiction authors as well. So you see this a lot with fiction authors, because fiction, you need to write a lot of books and create your own backlist. And when you're first doing it, you're usually self-publishing on a shoestring budget. And so they're, not very attractive covers, and there's lots of proofreading errors. And so it's like, okay, well, those first 5 books, we've got to just revamp and relaunch, redesign all the covers. Actually, we've recently done this with a nonfiction author as well. He's a bit turnaround consultant. And so there are case studies of his different turnarounds that he's done for folks in a series, but the covers didn't all match each other, and the subtitles were kind of all over the place, and there wasn't a series title for the book. And so we just took all of the covers, revamped them, made them look like a series, updated the interiors with the calls to action and all those sorts of things. And just one by one, just relaunching them and uploading the files into the same sales page. So we get to keep the reviews from all those years and just going back out and building up a book launch team again, getting more reviews with the new launch, that sort of thing. So that's my preferred method if we can. I would only unpublish something if the only times we've requested an author to help us get something unpublished if it was a hybrid who did a crappy job.
Yeah,
which happens a lot. And the hybrid, you have to wait sometimes like 5 years, and they finally release the rights. And you just, if you can hassle them to unpublish it, that's best. And then you can republish fresh, kind of in your own accounts as a self-published author. So that's what we do more of.
All right, so let me pitch you something. Are you someone that wants to launch and grow a speaking business? Maybe it's time to write and publish that book. Perhaps you want to create and sell your online course. Well, I've put together a free on-demand training video for you. It's not going to promise you the moon. It's not going to say it's going to happen quickly or without tears or sacrifice, but I'll pragmatically lay out for you exactly how to chart a course to do all these things we just talked about. You can find this free on-demand training video at stagepagescreen.com. That's stagepagescreen.com. So we've been kind of throwing around these three different ways in which folks can publish. Maybe we just pause for a moment, kind of define each of them, and maybe just we can both kind of speak candidly to the pros and cons and like who this is ideal for and who it might not be ideal for. So I think there's just three, but we're really talking about self-publishing, hybrid publishing, and then traditional publishing. So are those the three? Are you going to throw a fourth in there? What do we got?
Well, I had to define my own place in the market, Josh.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what is Paper Raven?
Self-publishing services.
Okay. Fair.
And I would say the reason that I feel the need to sort of identify as self-publishing services is because we help the author self-publish, but we're the team that comes to help them edit, design, etc. And the books still end up in the author's account. So it's true self-publishing.
So y'all are like back in the day, Extreme Home Makeover. You just like pull up with a van and there's like a plumber in there.
Move that
There's
bus.
An interior design. Yes. Yeah. You move the bus. The house is beautiful. People are crying. Cut to commercial. Pay the bills. Everything's good.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Actually, I love that a lot.
You feel free to put that on the tagline of your website. A little wordy above the fold, but very well.
Well, which one do you want to start with? It'll be interesting to see our different perspectives. I love this.
Okay, yeah, sure. All right. So we're going to say self, and then we're going to say self-services van, which is Paper Raven, hybrid, traditional. So let's go in that order. Let's start with self-publishing.
Self-publishing classically is you, the author, are managing the whole project, right? Yes, you're writing the book, or you're managing the person who's writing the book for you if you go with ghostwriter or editor who basically ends up rewriting the book for you. But you are finding your own editor, you're finding your own cover designer, you're finding your own formatter or a software that helps you format. You're getting those files together, you are uploading them into Amazon KDP, Ingram Spark. That's how I would define it.
And would you say kind of a healthy expectation there is it's going to take you a year to do it, and it's probably going to cost you $10K out of pocket to kind of do this on your own?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. Now let's talk about self-services. And are there, I imagine there's others out there that are doing it, but, give your perspective on sort of what that looks like and maybe pros and cons of that one.
Yeah. So self-publishing services, it should be a team that comes preloaded with all the folks you're going to need. So they have their own processes that they walk you through. They're going to help you with the book writing, the editing, the design, the formatting, the publishing, but they're the ones on the hook. Like, the self-publishing services company should be helping you do all of these things to a high quality. At the end of the day, though, it should be your book, right? And by that, I mean, I think the ISBN should be in your name. the author's name. And all the files should be uploaded into your account, just like you would with self-publishing. KDP, you have a username and a password, and your book is in that account. Ingram Spark, you have a username and a password, and the book is in that account, which, from my philosophical perspective, becomes important because to all the things we're talking about, you can't revamp and relaunch your book if you don't have access to the files. You can't run Amazon ads. You can't update your keywords and categories. So I think that's the defining characteristic of self-publishing services is they're helping the author to self-publish. Would you add to that?
And kind of what is to speak candidly to this, because I just think it would be helpful. So what is kind of the premium on something like that? So if I might need to kind of mentally budget for, $10K in a year, if I'm going to do it completely on my own, does that number kind of move to like $15K as a premium because now I'm, like I'm no longer the project manager. I can just sort of be the talent. I've hired and vetted a trusted partner to handle the other side of things that I should probably have no business handling on my own anyway?
I think it depends a little bit on who's writing the book, because where you see the most, where
that's the big ticket item,
is the writing of the book. If you're hiring a well-known ghostwriter, that can be expensive. And on the marketing, are you going for a bestseller push or something like that? That can get very expensive. So, certainly like Scribe Media is an example of a self-publishing company. They've been restructuring. I don't know if they're still going to be Scribe at the end of this, but
who knows?
Who knows? But they were famous for their, 100K plus package. And people would always ask me, why is Scribe charging 100K plus? I'm like, well, ghostwriter on the front end, best-selling package on the back end. Like those are really expensive things to to pull off, right? And I have ghostwriter friends and they charge 50 grand for a manuscript.
Correct.
So just keep that in mind. That's on there's a spectrum here. That's on the expensive end of the spectrum. Other folks for self-publishing services, I would probably ballpark something like 15 to 25K because ideally you want to be paying for great developmental editor and copy editor and proofreader. And so each of those phases, like editors are expensive. Yes. Justifiably so.
Yeah, but that at the end of the day, you can't outmarket your way of a book that's just okay, or even worse, a book that's not great. Just like, we've all been tricked by a movie trailer where it's like, that looks hilarious or that looks awesome. And you go to it and you're like, all 2 minutes of the funny stuff was in the trailer. Yeah. And so you spread that word. You go, don't waste your time. Just stream it later on Netflix. And conversely, we've all had the experience where you walk out of something, you go, that was incredible. And you go see it again. You text friends, you bring friends with you. And so I think you can't outmarket your way from a poorly written book. Thus, the importance of, again, being picky, being snobby, and paying the necessary premium for those folks, because you want your book to sell for decades.
Yeah, totally agree. In fact, if you do launch a book that is not high quality, you're going to get 2-star reviews. So it's probably not worth your time and effort.
Yes. Okay, hybrid publishers.
So hybrid's interesting, right? Hybrid typically, the way that I would define it anyway, is the author and the publisher both put in money for the expenses, right? So the author is asked to put in $5,000, $10,000, and maybe buy some books as well. Then the hybrid is bringing the team to do the work. Typically, it's like not a lot of editing. Usually it's like proofread, cover design, format, upload, right? And so, and then on the back end, you split the royalties 50-50, which sounds very fair on the surface. However, mechanically, to do that, it means that they must upload the files into their publisher account. The publisher receives the royalties, and then they split the royalties out, quote unquote, 50-50. you as the author will never know what happened because you'll never see a sales report unless they send you one. And which is true of traditional as well, but hybrid, there's no barrier to entry. Anybody can become a hybrid publisher and have no idea, are they doing this professionally? Is your book are they reporting on sales? There's no way to verify whether they're should be paying you out money that they're not paying you, and it's completely in their control. So
yes, agreed. Yeah,
there are a few good ones, but you really got to vet your hybrid publishers.
Yeah, this is the vehicle in which I can't even imagine myself ever recommending the hybrid publishing. Again, I'm sure there are a couple very solid, reputable, integrous companies out there, but it's just not a vehicle I can recommend. It's like if you're doing it because you go, I'd like to make more per book, then either fully self-publish or work with a company like yours, Morgan, and self-publish with some help and get some help on that side. And if you go, I just want to be the talent, so I can focus on speaking or my day-to-day business, and I've got the platform to justify it, then do the difficult work of going out and getting a traditional publishing deal, which getting the deal for a traditional publisher is about as hard as self-publishing your book. It is not a shortcut. There are pros and cons to it, which I imagine we'll speak to in a moment. But it's not like, I just send them an email and then they wire me in advance. It is its own thing as well. I do. So maybe now we turn to traditional publishing. And
before we
yes.
Go away from hybrid, I do want to give a shout out. Morgan James, no relation. David Hancock, the CEO, named it Morgan James because that's his kids' names. But they're a hybrid publisher. They've been around forever. They have actual distribution into bookstores. And one of the benefits, one of the reasons that folks like Russell Brunson and some of these folks have published with them is because they will sell author copies to the author for just $1 over cost. Oh. So if you're running a book funnel or something like that, sometimes that can be, if you want to try to straddle the best of both worlds, like they're going to get me distribution into Barnes & Noble nationwide, and I'm only paying $1 above cost for print copies, like you might be able to slice the best of both worlds, but got to know who you're publishing with, got to vet them, got to read the fine print for sure with a hybrid.
Agreed. Okay. Yes, and agreed. I have heard good things about Morgan James. Okay, turning to the world of traditional publishing.
You want me to go first? Okay,
sure.
I guess I have been going first. I feel like you're going to have way more, insights.
I might.
Yeah. So just being super straightforward, my short stint in traditional publishing was working for an academic publisher, Lynn Reiner Publisher, in Boulder, Colorado, when I was in college. Right? So this was like, I don't know, I'm 38. I was probably 20 something. It's been a while, yes, right?
Yes.
And I was the lackey for the acquisitions editor. So I was in charge of the slush pile. That's my experience in traditional world. Other than that, it's friends, people who I sort of walk through the process with. I mentioned Ryan Levesque, Dane Abraham, Jeff Goins, like some of these people, might have talked to them about their book as it was going through the process, but I'm very much on the outside looking in. From that perspective, it seems like benefits are that the publisher, takes charge of the project in a lot of ways. So you pitch them the idea, they say, yes, we like the book idea, we like you as the writer, let's partner on this, let's go for it. And then they kind of shepherd you through the process, and they have connections that you wouldn't otherwise have. Mm-hmm. They can get you into bookstores, for instance. It's the only way you're going to get a shot at the New York Times list is if you're backed by a traditional publisher. You still got to have the sales, and that can be tricky. And sometimes there are things you don't know. For instance, it's much easier to hit the New York Times list with a hardcover than a paperback. Yeah. But you got to make sure that your publisher is going to publish a hardcover. Otherwise, that could be really, a hard hurdle to jump over when you're prepping for that launch week and trying to hit your 10,000 copies or whatever. On the con side, you're only going to get 10% of retail, probably. Right. I mean, maybe you have more insight into this, Josh, than I do, but you're probably going to, make $2 on a $20 book. And you just have to be willing for that trade-off. And typically the folks who I see who want that trade-off is because they want to go for the list, the New York Times list.
Yes. Yeah. That's all fair. I probably have 6 or 7 bullet points on this. Again, just brutally honest. In the nonfiction space, which is where I represent authors, it is next to impossible for you to get a traditionally published book deal if you don't have 100,000 subscribers on something. So that could be an email list, that could be TikTok, that could be YouTube, like 100,000 bare minimum entry. And there are lots of folks out there that could be killing it in a niche and everyone knows them in that niche, but because they don't have that demonstrable, verifiable 6-figure number, it's going to almost be immediately a pass, even if the idea is great. The window of opportunity is out there. There's not a book out there like this, and it's really well written. So that is frustrating, candid barrier to entry, number one. Another just brutally blunt, honest thing is I think the number one misconception is, oh, if I'm with a traditional publisher, a Random House, a Penguin, or whatever household name, they are going to market the crap out of my book.
Right.
And that is not at all remotely true. I would say if you could single-handedly make 10 things happen during your book pub week, they might be able to add on 2. So that sort of like you can expect them to maybe boost marketing efforts by 5 to 10%. That's it. On the financial side of things, the advances are wildly negotiable. But again, a lot of that has to do with platform size, their hypothesis on how many books are going to sell based on how many books have been sold by other folks with similar platform size as you, or if you've already published a book. The royalty rate is pretty much set in stone. So whether you're a former president or an up-and-coming solid, influential voice in a niche with a sizable following, that 10% that you spoke of, that is pretty much set in stone and in no way negotiable. So it's all about that upfront money. Lastly, to me, the things that traditional publishers can be phenomenal at would be they can have a phenomenal editor who's been there for 2 decades, who's worked on books that just broke out and went bananas. And I think what it is they have a really unique pattern recognition. Now, and you could find this elsewhere. I'm just saying it's going to be a bit trickier because as the author, you're not going to have that pattern recognition yet. Right? You've worked on 1 book or maybe 2 or maybe 3. They've worked on, at that point, maybe hundreds. So they develop a pattern recognition of like, man, there was that 1 book that the idea was so good. It could have become Atomic Habits. It could have become 7 Habits, but because of A, B, and C, it didn't. And so we're going to make sure that you don't do A, B, and C, that you do the inverse of A, B, and C. So I think that's item number 1. Secondly, they're going to have lots of data and pattern recognition with title, subtitle, book cover, those sorts of things. It's like you're going to be guaranteed that your title, subtitle, and book cover are at minimum an 8 out of 10. Whereas if you self-publish, you can let your ego, your feelings get in the way of that. I really like this title. My aunt really likes this title. Instead of thinking about the consumer. And then the last thing I would say is in the event your book goes bananas, they can handle all of that burden, no problem. And your life doesn't get any more stressful. Your royalty checks just get bigger. So they can handle negotiating in the translation of 20 different languages, getting it in airport books. Like in the event that your wildest dream does occur, they can handle that no problem whatsoever. if you're self-publishing, that becomes a very welcomed burden, but a burden all the same.
Yeah, I agree with all of that.
So that's my rant on that. Okay, let's talk about categories for your book. Should I be thinking about, like, when I'm defining a category for my book in Amazon KDP, should I think about likelihood of someone stumbling upon it? Like, when I'm thinking about my reader, I think they're probably going to be browsing in this category, so I want to show up in that category. Relevance of book topic, easiest to dominate in a topic, so I can kind of break out from the crowd. What sort of hierarchy do you think about when defining that book category?
So for the ebook on Amazon, we get 3 categories, and that is a new thing. It used to be that we could pester Amazon and they would give us more categories. You can't do that anymore. You get 3 and only 3 on your ebook. Your physical books, you still get 2. That's, the traditional kind of way of thinking about it. And maybe it's helpful to contrast how kind of categories used to work in contrast, to how they work now on the Amazon bookstore. So it used to be you pick a big category, you print it on the back of the book, you send the books to the bookstore, they put the book on the shelf in alphabetical order by author last name, right? Like that was the whole point of categories, which sometimes worked well and sometimes didn't. Like I remember going into, this was when Cal Newport was releasing one of his new books and it hit the list, and it was a very popular book, and I went into a Denver bookstore, tattered cover, looking for it, and I couldn't find it anywhere on any shelves. And I finally sucked it up and asked a person behind the desk to help me find it. And he led me over to like the computer engineering shelf in the back dusty corner, and it's like the bottom shelf. And I was like,
you're like, why is deep work over here?
They're like, oh, well, he's a professor at Georgetown of computer science. I was like, accurate. Okay, fine. But anyway, so sometimes it works, sometimes it backfires a little bit. Amazon, in contrast, as a bookstore, an e-com bookstore, has exploded the use of categories so that it can match relevance to what the reader's browsing right now. And so they basically populate virtual bookshelves, kind of what you were talking about, where someone's browsing the bookstore, you're on a book sales page. I'm sure all of us have seen this and maybe just not recognized it. You're looking at a book on an Amazon sales page, you scroll down because you're like, oh, I'm going to read the reviews. You're interrupted by a browsing bar. It's a line of book covers. And how does Amazon pull those? Categories, right? They want it to be highly relevant. And so what you want to be thinking about is, how do I make sure my book is shown in these kind of browsing bars of categories? And you don't just go for the biggest category. You don't just go for business and money or biography and memoir. You want to go deep into a category. That's one of the main innovations I think that Amazon has really brought to the book world. I think is really important. We're going to see this over coming years. It's this development of very deep categories is actually going to help AI to match our readers to books better and better over time, especially once AI starts like crawling our books, and then we won't even know what category we're in, but somehow it's like, you read this book and you highlighted this passage, you're going to love this other book. Somehow that will be possible. We're not there yet, but we're trying to approximate that with these very deep categories, right? So what we like to think about is, we're going to get 3 to choose from. I want at least 2 different broad categories. I want to be in business and money as a broad category, and I want to be in biography and memoir as a broad category. However, I don't want to just be in the biggest stack, the big category, because within each of those, you could go deeper into subcategories. So I want to go as deep into a subcategory as I can. And that's what's going to be easy to hit. The good news is, if you start in these bigger categories that you want to compete in, relevance is there, right? You're climbing the ladder inside of business and money. You're climbing the ladder inside of health, fitness, and dieting. You're climbing the ladder inside of biographies and memoir. But just within each of those, go as deep as you can. 3rd level, 4th level. There's going to be some niche categories. And the way the algorithm works is, once you hit number 1 in a very niche category, it will start to show you more widely. in the next category up. So your book will be more visible in those browsing bars. And if you can snag a little orange flag, hot new release, something like that, that little orange flag follows you around and it's displayed in all those browsing bars along with the cover. So that's also nice when we can get that accomplished by hitting number one in these categories.
That makes a ton of sense. I want to talk about kind of your thinking around these four elements of a book. And I kind of think about these four elements of a book as almost like a, when you think about why an email gets opened, it's the subject line and the subject line, it's technically the subject line and the from name, and then it's the body of the email. And is it clear? Did it deliver on the promise of the subject line? And then there's a link, a landing page, et cetera. It is an incremental sort of stepping of processes. I want to talk about these four elements: title, subtitle, book cover image, and table of contents, which I see you, Morgan, nodding. To some, that's a surprising, like, why is that? I get why the other three might be a big deal, but why is the table of contents a big deal? Can you speak to each of those in whatever order you wish?
Main title, I like, and this is not me in particular. This is kind of like once you start looking for this, you're going to see this everywhere. Main title, short and snappy, 1 to 3 or 4 words usually. Piques curiosity, doesn't necessarily explain things, but it might like drop a hint as to what this book is about. But it's not. It can be mysterious, right? Subtitle in nonfiction, I would suggest, is very explanatory in a lot of ways. You want to tell people what they're getting out of the book, and it might be a long subtitle, it might be a shorter subtitle, but you're probably going to end up with something like at least 10 to 15 words. And some people get a little bit hung up on the subtitle, like, oh, how's it going to look on the cover and that sort of thing. But I mean, for the most part, you can finagle a subtitle, even a long one, to look fine on a cover. And what's interesting is when a reader's browsing the Amazon bookstore, and probably any bookstore, even if we were to go to barnesandnoble.com, bookshop.org, like the e-commerce interface, typically the main title and the subtitle have the same font size. So you get real estate there. If you are just putting out, I don't even know. Like, I think this is especially, we're seeing this a lot in the fiction world, that we used to sort of say, The Haunting, a novel.
Yeah. Yep.
And we realize, oh, wait, we have available real estate there.
Yes.
We should add other things besides just a novel.
Yes.
And so we've seen that massively change the way that fiction subtitles work. Memoir as well. We used to just do a memoir. And now we're at least usually adding a parenthetical to describe, what kind of memoir. Nonfiction has always had a bit of an advantage here, that it's been much more typical for us to have a longer subtitle, and then we get to use all that real estate on those website, the e-com books. So don't be afraid of a long subtitle.
You're 100% correct about that, and that's very astute to note that the font size is the same. The one nuance there I recall is that there does tend to be a character limit before the title begins to get truncated. I forget the number, but I think it's somewhere in the range of 60 to 70 characters. So if you have an aspect of your subtitle that you think is the most convincing aspect, so let's say you have a series of 3 things, like sell more books, make an impact, and inspire others, and you think that the sell more books is the most compelling part, put that at the beginning of that 3-part bit, not the end, because if someone's on mobile, that could get truncated if they're browsing in categories.
That's a great point. Yes, agreed. Yeah, so it's worth looking around your genre, like look at some comparable titles, look at them from the experience of a reader who's browsing, pull it up in various e-com websites, as we mentioned, Amazon.com, barnesandnoble.com, bookshop.org are probably the big ones, and look at it on desktop, when you've shrunk your screen in half because you're trying to manage multiple tabs. look mobile. Think about how people really do browse for things, and look at some comparable titles. What do people in your genre or topic do? It's really important.
And then what would be your thoughts on book cover, that image?
Cover, we typically suggest one main image and two or three colors, right? And so sometimes people want to try to cram multiple images in, and it's like it's better just clean. Clean is always a better. We tend not to go for white as much, just because you want a little bit of a contrast. Again, it's not always true, but we want to look at multiple options. If we have a white cover we really like, we'll usually say, well, what if we flipped the colors and it was, a dark red or a dark blue or a black or something like that, just to see. But because your e-com websites are usually white background. And so if you've got a white book sitting on a white background, sometimes you want a little bit more contrast there. Again, not always. That's not a hard and fast, but it's something that we think about for sure. Obviously, you want your main title to be the most noticeable thing, very legible. When your book is a thumbnail and tiny, whatever, 200 pixels by 150 pixels or whatever it is, it's small. So you want that main title to be very visible, and a single image and a couple of colors, and the typography. Sans serif is more modern. Serif is more traditional. Like, work with a cover designer. They'll give you stuff that looks good, and then you can just pick your favorite.
Yes, agreed. And I want to double click on this, the thing you mentioned about it. You're going to primarily view it as a subtitle. An unintentional, well-intended mistake I've seen with some self-published authors is they're working with a designer. The designer's great, but the designer is going to send them a preview of the file that's like 1200 by 1200. So they get the image, they're excited to see it, they open it up on their desktop and they go, this looks phenomenal. In addition, if you're working with a designer, I would say, hey, send me the big boy image, but also would you please mock up one on like Amazon in a category, browsing on a mobile device, and then stick mine in there as if it's currently published, so that, because that's how it's going to be viewed by the general public 92% of the time, not the big screen image that your designer is sending you over.
100%. Totally agree with that.
So it needs to pop in that environment.
Yeah. And table of contents is interesting. The reason I'd be curious to know why it is in your top 4. For me, it is an important consideration because it's in the book preview. When you click on a book and you open up the first 10%, you can see the table of contents, and it's what people tend to skim, right? Like if they're picking up a physical book from a shelf, they're going to look at the front cover, they're going to look at the back cover, they're going to flip back to the beginning of the book, they're going to look at the first few pages. And then they might start reading a bit of a chapter. So table of contents is going to be in there, either the digital preview or picking it up.
Agreed. Yeah, most of the books I work on, for context, or nonfiction, tend to be prescriptive advice, self-help oriented. There's some study, I don't remember the name of it, but it does identify the table of contents as factor number 3 or factor number 4 of a purchase decision. Now, if the book is individually recommended to you by someone you know and trust, you skip all these things. Like, you don't really care what the title is. You don't care if the cover image is terrible and breaks all of the rules we've said. Like the book The Miracle Morning, written by a friend of mine, Hal Elrod, a big self-publishing success story. His first version of that book cover is awful. It's terrible. It's ugly. You would think this is one of those piece of crap self-published books that we were ranting about earlier. Yet the book is phenomenal. It's a great, helpful, practical, inspiring book. So if it is strongly recommended from a friend, you folks kind of skip some of these checkpoints, I guess I would call them, on the customer journey. But if it's not personally recommended, the table of contents, I think, is number 3 or 4. And my assessment on that is that, to me, like, if I could only define a self or a nonfiction book in 2 words, it's like, be helpful. That is the primary goal. Whether you're helping folks be a better parent, grow their business, be more confident, overcome anxiety, have better habits, be helpful. And I think it is in the table of contents that you get a sense of how helpful the author is going to be to you, because you get a sneak peek at the methodology. If you skim the table of contents, you can begin to get a sense of like, oh, this is there's going to be a methodical order. I first have to do this, then do this, then start doing that, then stop doing this. So I think it gives readers, as they're browsing and potentially considering buying, a sneak peek into how well thought out and constructed your advice is, versus is this just kind of a vanity project to just share your story. And again, a memoir is that point, but again, if it's nonfiction, if it's prescriptive, if it's helpful in nature, that is my sense of why that matters so much.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And true, like classic memoir reads much more like a novel. And
For sure.
so Table of Contents is a totally different. I mean,
For
you could
sure.
almost
Yeah. With fiction books, it's like
chapter 34 and fine.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
But you can't do that on a nonfiction book. You have to give people the scope of the book. What are we going to be talking
Correct.
about? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I push the authors we work with to put just as much emphasis into each and every chapter title as you would your book title and subtitle. And in a similar way, kind of draw some attention, tease a little bit, and give a promise of what they're going to get from that. So it's almost like writing a fantastic blog or article headline. It should draw attention. It should give a promise that it can genuinely follow through with.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Let's talk about book reviews and how to get them on an ongoing basis. The Journal of Marketing found that they sort of defined that the minimum of number of reviews for trustworthiness is 50. So sort of under 50, if folks haven't again been personally recommended the book, they're going to be less likely to purchase it. But 50 and above seems to make the difference. How do we, as authors, whether we're this is a burden for everyone, whether you're traditionally published, hybrid published, self-published, or you have Morgan's van of helpers pull up with the self-publishing services. This is a burden and a challenge for all of us. What innovative strategies have you seen folks do to kind of get that constant trickle of reviews coming in?
Yeah, the most foundational piece that we put in every book that we help authors publish, if they take our advice, is we talked at the very beginning about those breadcrumbs, the call to action, and getting someone onto a landing page, getting their email address. If they land on that page, the only way they got there is from your book. So it would be very appropriate and a good idea to follow up, with that email sequence. So they provide their email address, you give them the link to the YouTube videos or the companion course or the printable workbook or whatever it's going to be. And then 7 days later, you say, hey, hope you loved the book. Could I ask you to leave a review? Here's the link to leave a review. I would link them to the actual review page, not the sales page. But if you're on your book sales page and you scroll down and there's a button that says write a review and you click it and it pulls up a new page that shows the 5 stars at the top. In the follow-up email, I would link to that page because most people stay logged on to Amazon all the time. So they click that link, they're going to be taken right to the page with the 5 stars. Even if they just click the stars, it's going to get you a rating. They may not actually type in words and hit submit, but they will click those stars. And as far as I can tell, that will automatically capture as a rating, which I think is a huge part of why ratings have become such bigger numbers. Now why you're seeing so many books with, 20,000 ratings. Like, how the heck do we have 20,000 people leaving ratings on these books? I think it's because Amazon is I'm pretty confident. I haven't got actual confirmation from Amazon on this, but I'm pretty sure that as soon as they click the stars, that's registered as a rating, even if they don't submit a written review. So that's certainly the foundational piece. And then, of course, you can follow up again a couple weeks later and say, hey, if you didn't have a chance to leave a review, provide a reason why it would be you'd be very appreciative of a review and link to the review, right? And you can even include some other reviews in the email to let people know, look, other people have left a good review. Would you like to leave one too? Right. So email follow-up for sure. And then the reason we put that in at the beginning is because then anytime you market your book, you're getting people onto your email list, you're following up, and you're asking for a review. This is how you get reviews on autopilot. And anytime you market your book in any context, you're increasing not only book sales, but email subscribers and reviews, kind of all in one go. The other thing I would just remind people is to ask for reviews. I mean, Alex Hormozy is a relatively new author on the scene, but man, has he broken, it seems like, every record. He and Gary Vaynerchuk are phenomenal innovators in the author space. I think Gary Vaynerchuk sold 1 million books in 24 hours, leveraging NFTs and his massive platform, right?
Amazing.
And Alex Hormozy came out with a tremendous book launch just a few months ago, and sold books directly. And I mean, just tens of thousands, hundreds of, I think I talked to one of the people who was involved in planning that event. I think they sold 200,000 copies like that day.
Amazing.
Directly, not even through an Amazon or anything like that, like from their website, which was insane and amazing. And Alex Hormozy has a ton of reviews, yes, but also reviews. And he asks all the time. If you ever listen to any of his podcasts or watch his YouTube videos, like, he constantly asks people to leave reviews for either the podcast or the book or whatever. And so ask in every situation, when you're on stage, when you're in front of a microphone. Hey, my book has 1,800 reviews on Amazon. It's Start Writing Your Book Today by Gist MacDonald. Would you like to go read it and leave a review? Right. I mean, that it sort of intentionally sounded a bit cheesy, but can you work it in there?
Yeah, for sure.
It's just an important reminder. It's a call to action, right? We all need a call to action. And I'm even guilty of it. Like, I'll listen to podcasts and then I won't even think about leaving a review until the podcaster's like, hey, it would actually be amazing if you're listening right now, if you could just go leave a review. So you guys who are listening right now.
Leave a review. Everything.
So ask people. It's really important.
Agreed. Do you, how nerdy do you get on the email marketing side of things? Do you do something like a sequence, meaning, let's say there's a link that says, hey, it really helps independent authors if you leave a review, and it's linked to that most direct page, as you said, brilliant point. Do you do something where you can utilize some of these softwares where if they do not click that link, then 7 days later they are sent sort of another version asking them, versus if they do click that link, you kind of parse them out and leave them alone? How nerdy do you get with that? Or is that like, okay, you're kind of overcomplicating this aspect of it?
Yeah, I don't worry about it too much. Because technically, if they click the link, you don't know that they left a review. They may have clicked the link. So I would rather pester someone a little bit too much than not get the review.
Yes.
So there are some things that you could do to remove people, but probably the worst that's going to happen is you're going to ask someone to leave a review twice. And maybe the second time they respond and say, hey, dude, I left you a review already. And then you get to say, thank you so much. Can I, do something extra special for you? And now you're in a conversation with them. So not much downside, I would say, to just repeatedly asking people to leave a review.
The two interesting kind of unorthodox approaches I've seen with reviews, there's a few authors we work with that every year on their birthday, they will send out an email to their list and say, hey, shameless plug, it's my birthday. If you wanted to give me a gift, the best gift that you can give to me as an independent author is to go give an honest review on this book. And so those emails never felt slimy or weird to me. It was like, it's your birthday. Like, that's awesome. And it's totally fair on your birthday, I guess, to ask folks for stuff. And then the other kind of interesting point for folks that are self-publishing, they're gathering launch teams and these sorts of things is, kind of be careful in asking folks to leave honest reviews versus asking everyone to leave a 5-star review. There's some interesting research around that consumers are more likely to trust and purchase a product that has 3.5-star reviews versus a ton of nothing but 5-star reviews. So I think if you're able to be in a place where you can, yes, encourage an army of folks to go leave reviews, let them decide on that, because actually that schematic of a variety of reviews will, according to the data, help you. I went and looked at some of your 3-star reviews for Start Writing Your Book Today. It's like they're nothing to be scared of, because, for example, here's verbatim this 3-star review. Now, in your subtitle, it's specifically, start writing your book, and then something about this is going to help you with nonfiction writing. So this 3-star review says, will it help with a fictional novel? It's like, you idiot. The subtitle literally says it's not going to help you with a fictional novel.
It was an honest question I had.
Yeah. Sorry, Jesse. I didn't mean to call you out like that. And then in the review, this person, Jesse, says, once again, I failed to read the description thoroughly. Yet, all the same, I'm hoping that this book will help me to write my fiction novel. And so I think sometimes as authors, we can get scared of those, but often those 3-star reviews can just articulate for folks, hey, if you're looking for this, it's not necessarily what this book is.
Yeah. I mean, we all have 1-star reviews too. Let's
for sure.
Out there. I mean, you don't have enough people reading your book until you get your first 1-star review.
Yes. Yeah. Those always bring tears. Those always bring tears, and that's okay.
One of my 1-star reviews says, I literally learned nothing from this book. I'm like,
wow.
Cool. I'm glad that you could have written a better book than me.
Exactly.
You brought up an important point, Josh, I do want to underscore here, and that's the book launch team, which sometimes when we're in this space, we forget some of the fundamentals. A book launch team is a fundamental. And so you want 20, 50, 100, 1,000 people on a book launch team, and you're asking them to read the book before it comes out, an advanced review copy. You're letting them know the launch date, and you're asking them to be available to leave a review on the week that the book launches, and get them to say yes to that. Don't assume that just because you have a giant list, people will do it. Like, get them to raise their hand and say, yes, I'd like to be a part of your book launch team. We don't need to go too deep down, pre-launch strategies. However, traditional published pre-launch strategies are different than self-published pre-launch strategies, because traditional books, you have access to being able to sell a book ahead of time, and yet the sale date doesn't drop until launch date. Self-published books don't have that ability. When we pre-order a book or put a pre-order book on Amazon, if it sells on a date, it sells on a date. They don't sort of accumulate in that way. And so my recommendation for folks pre-launch is to just enroll people into your book launch team. Put up a landing page, get an exclusive early copy of the book, get some bonuses as part of my book launch team, give me your email address, sign up for the book launch team, get as many people on that team as you can. And then what I like to do, again, this is more of a self-published trick, is put the ebook in Amazon KDP Select, set the ebook for free for 5 days. That's the privilege you get for being enrolled in KDP Select. Even if you only do it once, at least once is what I recommend. And tell your book launch team, on launch day, the ebook's going to be free. Download that ebook, leave a review. And bear in mind, you're only going to get 20, maybe 50% of your book launch team. Maybe. The bigger the book launch team, the lower the conversion. So if you only have 100 folks on a book launch team, you might only end up with 30 reviews from that week. But it's still something you have to do, right? And so if you have the ebook for free for 5 days, it gives them a reason to download the book at that time, leave a review fairly quickly, and now that review is a verified purchase review on Amazon. So that's a pre-launch strategy. And then you mentioned the birthday, or even the book's birthday every year. You can rinse and repeat. You can do the same thing again. You can say, hey, so excited, we're getting the book out to so many more people. We're running this promotion on the ebook. if you haven't left a review yet, it would mean the world to me, for you to go and leave a review while we're doing another big push and getting this book out to so many more people. So I think continuing to ask.
I appreciate you being specific in that kind of adherence percentage that you see of roughly if you get 25% of, if you gather a launch team of 100, assume 25 of them are actually going to go do the thing. So just keep that in mind as you're creating that sort of denominator number in your mind of how big you want that team to be.
Yeah, hundreds. We want as many people as you possibly can.
Everyone, please join the team. Morgan, you are brilliant.
So good.
I've loved your insights. I loved your insights on all the other 6 episodes I listened to with you. I appreciate your generosity, your insights, and being patient with my nerdery.
Well, I just want to say I predicted the future because this has been one of my favorite podcast interviews ever. I'm going to share this with everyone I know over and over and over again.
Well, if we could get your email address, that'd be great.
That's right.
I will sign up for your email list. Don't worry.
Morgan, talk about how folks can work with you, find you, Paper Raven Books, all the good things.
Yep, paperravenbooks.com. We do have a quiz. Actually, we talked about call to action. Some people do have a quiz that can be good. You want to make sure it's a high converting quiz already before you stick it in a book. But we have a quiz about which publishing path is right for you. If you heard us talk about, traditional, hybrid, self-publishing companies, that sort of thing. And if you go through the quiz, I'll give you a suggestion, and then I'll send you a bunch of information on my perspective of all the different types, because I think every book deserves the consideration of what type of publishing path is best for this book. And for some books, it might be traditional. Some books, it might be more like self. And the same author can do multiple types of publishing. It just depends on what their book really needs. So I'd encourage folks to check out that quiz. And then, of course, that will help me to send more information your way as well.
For sure. Morgan, thank you for your brilliant insights and the generosity of your time. We very much appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Josh. Thank you, Jesse. Y'all have a great day.
All right. You too. Thanks, Morgan.